Hi, my name is Rena, and I work at the Museum of Movements in Malmö. The Museum of Movements is a national museum on democracy and migration that is being built at this very moment. I work as a project manager, and I'm responsible for the outreach part of the museum. I am no expert in environmental issues, but I think I know about community engagement. And that is what I will discuss with you today, or talk about today. So, short background, local politicians in Malmö decided that maybe it's a good idea to have a national museum in Malmö. We do not have one. One about migration and democracy. So they sent a letter to the Minister of Culture. And she agreed and supported a feasibility study. And that assignment fell on the culture department in the city of Malmö. And more specifically, on my two bosses' table, Fredrik Elg and Roxana Ortiz. And they understood the power in this, that creating a museum from the beginning without any collections, without anything, it's a bit rare, at least in Sweden, I would say. So they decided to do it a bit differently. They decided to question everything, because now we know what the politicians want, but what do people in Sweden want? So they traveled from the south of Sweden all the way up to the north. They met with 650 different individuals, about 168 different organizations, and then they questioned all parameters. Should it be a museum? Should it be about migration and democracy? And should it be placed in Malmö? We heard yes, it should be about. It should be a museum. We asked why not a culture house or something else, and they said because museums are powerful. They have dignity, and they can carry big topics such as migration and democracy. But we also heard that we should take the civil society's gaze on democracy and migration, because we always hear the stories from the top, and now we want it from the bottom. And that is why this museum will center around oral history, because as many of you know, oral history is a tradition used by historically marginalized communities, among others, to write themselves back into history. And about Malmö, yes, it should be in Malmö, because Malmö is historically known for the migration and for democratic movements. But the most important question for me was, how should the museum work? And we heard that we should work in the same way, because we met with a lot of people and organizations, and they say continue with that. Talk to us, meet us. We have to work slowly and humble, build relationship and trust, and that is something we took very seriously. We wrote to the government that we do not want a fancy building, we do not want a lot of millions, we want 5 years, a small place in the city of Malmö. And we got that. We got a venue, 600 square meters, where we meet people. And that is what I do. That's my job, to meet people. Very lucky. And we were also told that we need to be humble and build relationship and trust, because museums are powerful, trustworthy, but at the same time, as we just heard, they are colonial institutions in a way as well. They have done a lot of harm to some marginalized communities, indigenous groups, and so on. So that is what we are doing in that very space. But what we also heard was that we need to think of ethics when dealing with personal stories, because stories belong to people, and people need to be treated with respect and care. So that is something we are really focusing on. We also heard do nothing about us without us. That means co-creation, co-collecting, co-researching, co-exhibiting, and this is all very exciting, but also challenging, because we need the ethics in place. We also heard that we need to give back, because when we engage with communities, communities will keep us relevant, because they will keep us on our toes. They will question us, criticize us. When we are relevant, we get visitors, and when we get visitors, we get money. How do we give back to the communities that engage with us? That is a question I want to raise. But the most important question for me is not provocative, but it's an honest question. Do we need ethical guidelines when we engage with local communities? If yes, why? Because I think we cannot do this alone. The environmental crisis, museums cannot handle it on our own. We need to engage with communities, and then we need ethical guidelines, I think, at least. That's it.